You guys want a TLDR? Boom, there's a deck list. Did you miss it? I guess you'll have to watch the video to see how it turned out. The video also has this guy in it. Enjoy! Hey guys, welcome back to Team Slinger. My name is Peter, and if you don't know, I'm playing in the CoreTCG regionals that are happening either today or tomorrow, depending on when this video goes up. What I want to do today is tell you why I decided to play in this regionals, the deck building process, and how I prepared. Then in a video going up next week, I'll go over how I actually did and what my takeaways were. So I've been playing Digimon for a little over a year now, and my play group was originally 4 people that would meet at my house to play whatever decks we thought were fun. We didn't have a local card shop where anybody played the game, and within our group, I became the good player. My friends would often ask me for ideas on deck building and what I thought was good in the meta. It eventually became a pretty common sentiment in our little friend group that I should go play in a tournament, because being good in a small group obviously means I'll do great at a regionals, right? Well, we sat on that sentiment and continued playing in our small pod, until early this year when the Ex5 meta really caught my attention. You see, the meta was always filled with decks that I wasn't interested in playing. I like Purple Jank, specifically Minerveramon. My favorite thing in the world was to play decks that let me sacrifice her in order to bring multiple bodies on board and push advantage with Minerveramon. In Ex5, we got a funny little game-breaking card called Anubismon that effectively warped the meta around itself and got restricted to 1 almost as soon as it came out. Anubismon will let you play out Minerveramon to go really wide and win the game really explosively, and happen to pair really well with another new card, Leviamon. The obvious pairing for the upcoming BT15 meta was to take the already fantastic Leviamon, pair it with the new Leviamon X support, and bring in the newly restricted Anubis engine to make a deck with really powerful removal and really explosive plays. But I saw this as another opportunity. To me, this was a chance to pair Anubis with Minerveramon, effectively playing a juiced up version of the deck that I was already playing almost every time I met with my local group. To make things even better, this meta was full of cards that like to play things with effects, which would let Minerva net me 1 body from the trash. Decks like Numemon, Leviamon, Lugamon, and to some extent Yellow Vaccine would just give me free bodies to hit them back with. It would be the perfect opportunity to really see if Minerveramon was as busted as my friends seemed to think it was, and to see if I was even really that great of a Digimon player. So with that in mind, I made my first version of the deck profile, which may look familiar because it's the same deck list I posted in this video almost 2 months ago. Now this deck profile is kind of crazy to look back on because the deck has changed so much. The basic idea was draw lots of cards, play Minerva, find a way to sack it, and get your Merva. Then hold your Anubis for finishing off the game. Wargrammon was a 4-fun tech card because it could give Anubis blocker, but I also mentioned that the card could be swapped out for Maycrack. Now, as a 4-fun deck, I think this is totally fine. But if we stop and think about it just a little bit, there's a lot of problems going on with it. The rookie base has no floodgates, so I'm just letting the opponent go full gas. The Dark Lizards have to die to net me any value, and at that point I'm really far behind on getting a full stack to make a big play with. Also, this deck just loses the floodgates, as even with Maycrack, I'm really just limited on my ways to pop them, Pillowmon specifically. I also really don't have a great way to remove big threats, as Shine Greymon and Pandemonium Flame both require me to lose my stack to break board. These problems became really obvious as one of my groupmates had just built Yellow Vaccine, and he would effectively be able to floodgate me or force me to lose my stack every time I wanted to do something. So it was back to the drawing board. I stripped the deck down into its main engine components, and this is what we're left with. 29 cards that in my opinion define the core of what Minerveramon wants to do. Sunomon was the best egg for us to draw extra cards because we almost always discard when we hit level 5. Ignite was essential for Merva players as it gave us removal and a self-sack outlet. Dober X would be hands down our best champion, giving us a Retaliate body on play and 1 free cycle that triggers Suno, on top of having an inheritable that gives us memory back when we play a Digimon. Blue Meramon was necessary to cycle 2 extra cards, as well as gain us memory on inheritable, and then our top end is self-explanatory. Pandemonium Flame was in my opinion the best sack outlet for Minerva, as well as a great way to remove level 6s that I can't just swing into, like Venusmon. Lastly, our 2 analog youths and 4 wisdom trainings were the bare minimum search support I felt I needed to run in order to find my pieces. With this core, I had ways to gain memory back, ways to self-delete, and ways to break the opponent's board. The Labramon were fine to stay, as Anubis was the strongest card in my deck, and I needed a way to get it back. I left the 4 Gabumons, and for champions I cut 2 Dark Lizardmons for the promo Raremons. Rest in peace my wallet, as a way to prevent bricks and pop more level 3 floodgates if I had to. Then I let the last 2 Dark Lizardmons stick, because I figured it was the best way for me to keep cycling cards, and that Gabu into Dark Lizard wasn't that bad. For ultimates I alternated between filling out my count with 3 Wargrammons and 3 Maycracks, but eventually decided it was just better to play the Maycracks for consistency and keep my 1 of Lucamon. I grabbed a Death X to help me with Wideboard, slotted Calling to help me grab Anubis back, and then decided 2 purple memory boosts and a memory tamer would be good enough. This version of the deck played better than the first, but some big problems still remained. I was really vulnerable to floodgates, as the Makraks were just not cutting it. We also found out that a yellow vaccine player just getting 2 Bulkmons on board absolutely cucked my deck, and I had no way to deal with level 4s other than raiding into them with Saber, which was inconsistent at best. The Dark Lizards losing me a stack still felt really bad, and honestly, I wasn't happy to see any level 5s other than Blue Minerveramon. I also felt like I had no outs when my board was completely broken, no way to claw back into the game and make some plays. So it was back to the drawing board again, cutting all the cards I was unhappy with and rebuilding. This time, we would abandon the Gabu Dark Lizard idea entirely, instead slotting 1 and 1 on floodgates. Then for my Dark Lizards, I needed something to help me solve the Bulkmon dilemma. I reached into the dark depths of the Digimon TCG vault, and the card I found was BT6 Ogremon. On play, pitch 1 to pop a level 4 or lower. Now I could Merva, and throw 1 or 2 of these out to solve any lingering 4s. I can already hear, why not just Saber into them? And the answer is because sometimes we sack Minerva to get into Merva, and you will pass turn by doing that. When that happens, you'll not get the chance to raid into bodies, and I preferred a proactive approach to removing them instead of leaving retaliate blockers that can just get removed. Now that I was starting to get more cards that discard to do things, I realized I was building up a lot of trash. And you know what card helps you come back from behind when there's lots of trash? BT13 Gallantmon. This can net us a surprise win, and remove big boys like Ruin Mode, Death X, and even Leviamon. With red on my mind, I thought, there's a really notorious card that helps deal with players that want to play Digimon by effects in red. And thus, 2 copies of Crimson Blaze were slotted. To help with the red sources, I slotted in 2 BT15 Lugumon, which also let me pitch cards to pop a floodgate, keeping us in theme with building trash and removing small bodies. The final piece of the puzzle was the hardest though. I still could not find a level 5 that felt good. I felt like I needed more sack outlets for Minerveramon, but I also wanted to make sure small bodies wouldn't stick. And if possible, I wanted another source for Crimson Blaze, even better if it leaned into our wideboard theme. But a card like that doesn't exist, right? Meet the Ex5 Promo Wargrammon, the notoriously garbage promo that nobody wants to play. But to me, this card is perfect. It was a sack outlet, it was red, it played a body when it died, and it deletes 2 level 4 Digimon. Even better, if this card is under my Minerveramon stack when I pop it, I can bring back an extra level 3 on top of crossing out Merva and then spitting out 2 more bodies. It would be a really powerful 1-for-4, and if Minerva ever let me pop out a body, I could Digivolve it into Wargrammon to pop Minerva and then get my shenanigans rolling. Literally everything I could ask for was in this reject $2 promo. Now, to make space, I had to drop 1 purple boost and 1 Wargrammon, but I was super happy with how this deck was playing after these changes. I had ways to keep problem cards off the board, ways to pop Minerva, lots of ways to dig. It felt like every situation that came up, I had an answer for. It was truly the ultimate Minerveramon toolbox deck, and I was starting to feel hopeful about my chances. Would my pile of reject toolbox cards mashed together with broken cards be enough to possibly net me some wins at regionals, or flop horribly? I didn't have the experience with anything outside of Yellow Vaccine, Seccon, or Red Hybrid to tell. What I needed was somebody who had experience playing in and topping tournaments. The best of the best. That somebody was Mario Gaming World. I reached out to his Metafy page, hoping he'd be willing to sit down and teach me. I had no experience playing on webcam, no experience playing against real meta decks, and an honest expectation that Mario would tell me to just play Leviamon, or something better, because this was an impossible endeavor. Mario got back to me super quick, and after hashing out the details, we agreed on a time to play. Then, we briefly talked about what I was going to play. I explained that I didn't have a real expectation to win the regionals, that it was my first tournament, and that I saw this as a unique meta where Minerva could actually do some damage before it got sifted out of the meta by stronger decks in BT16. He agreed that, yeah, Minerva was not the strongest, or even strong, but that he could support the fact that I wanted to for fun it with this deck. Then it was time for the practice matches, where we started by focusing on Numemon, as it was likely to be a frequent pick for the tournament. To say I got absolutely blasted would be an understatement. We played 4 or 5 games, and each time, not only did I lose, but I did 0 damage to his security, and in some cases, he even ended the game with more security than he started with. To anyone else, this might have been super demoralizing, and it might have been if not for a couple of facts. The first was that I had never played against Numemon. I had no idea how to approach the matchup, and no idea that the deck could effectively remove any 7k or lower bodies from the board extremely easily. Had I known this, I probably would have played differently, and I wouldn't leave my level 5s outside of raising just for him to delete them and then swing me out next turn. I bricked at least twice in our games, and the fact that I saw Merva only 1 game in our entire set helped offer me some security in the fact that this might not be representative of the entire matchup. The other thing that helped keep my spirits high was the feedback that I got. After the set, I sent Mario my decklist for any advice he could offer me, and this is what he had to say.
The Pandemonium Flames is cool. I like the tech. cutting too much takes away from the spirit of the deck.
Yeah.
So in Anubis, I never liked Memory Tamer Matt. I never liked having Memory Tamer to begin with.
Okay.
Because you had so much consistency that it wasn't really necessary.
Yep.
I feel like you can cut the 2 mats for 1 Ruin Mode, 1 Purple Memory Boost.
Okay.
I do like that a lot.
I am down to clown. If you think it's good, I'll try it.
I think it's a little bit better, because Matt doesn't have your consistency. Sure, you're at 3, but it doesn't matter if you can't do anything. I think the Ogremons might be a tad unnecessary. Yeah, you have enough to pop floodgates. Between the Ignites, the Lugas, the Sabers can raid into a floodgate, the Skull Greys, the Crimson Blazes. A little more situational, but it can do it. Yeah, this isn't your typical Anubis Minerva deck, because you're doing Minerveramon shenanigans. That changes the whole tune.
Yeah. I agree.
I haven't seen Minerveramon since the Lilith loop.
There's probably a reason for that, but you know.
I get that. Yeah, I think the 2 mats for sure. Purple Boost Ruin Mode will help you. I think cutting 2 Ogres for 2 Ogres helps you. 2 Airmons is good. 2 Sabers is good. 4 Doberexes is ideal. The Skull Grey is really cute. It's I never would have considered that, but it leans into what the deck does pretty well. It also gives you red for Crimson Blaze, which is pretty good.
And if it dies under the Minerva stack, it pops out an extra body.
Yeah,
I quite like.
It is really nice.
I don't know if you guys can sympathize, but playing something relatively unorthodox and having a really, really good player recognize that these are cool choices and that he can see the theme and logic behind what you're doing is really, really gratifying. Switching out the mats for another boost and going back to slotting a Ruin Mode to deny the enemy's rebuild was smart, and a change I implemented immediately. The opinions on Ogremon were a bit split, as they never came up during our set, so I could see why he would recommend me to swap to the EX5 Ogremon instead. Ultimately though, my choice would be neither, as my friend sent me an interesting piece of tech to adapt to the Leviamon meta. This is Black Gato Uver. It's a 5-drop level 4 purple Digimon that plays itself out of security at the end of battle. Where it really shines though, is its on-playability. By returning 1 Digimon card from your opponent's trash to the bottom of their deck, draw 1 card. This effectively means that you can bottom deck either Merva or Leviamon, turning off the Biting Crush delay effect or stalling out an Anubis combo. Mario also had this to say about our matchup.
So I'll food for thought. I like the Crimson Blazes because it's going to throw off Numemon players. Like, I knew it was there because turn 1 you analog youth and show me it. I'm like, wow, I'm playing around that the rest of the game. But it won't always come up. And you'll have a red purple Digimon or Saber Dramon. They won't think about it, and then it's like, oh, Crimson Blaze. Oh wow, I guess I lose now. It's crazy. And then, it's not too bad.
Hearing that he played the set differently immediately due to the Crimson Blaze flip on Analog Youth was something I didn't consider. But also hearing that the card would catch people off guard was really reassuring. Running it was an objectively correct meta call. To close out our coaching session, I asked Mario for any final thoughts on my deck list, as well as for a number of rounds he could see me realistically winning. This is what he had to say.
I think if you consistently draw Anubismon, you'll win a lot of your rounds.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the early rounds, Minerva combo will really bamboozle some of the early round players who really don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
And I think Crimson Blaze is a great tech for the meta because it stops Numemon, Lugamon, and a Leviamon a little bit, which I like a lot. It's just a twist on Anubismon, and like it's in the fun tier 2 realm. Maybe you can't top up regionals with it, but like if you high roll into Anubis all day, you still can.
Okay. Do you want to throw a number out there on how many rounds you think I could take, or might take?
I think at minimum, if it's 9 rounds, you can win 6 minimum.
Damn, bro. Okay.
Minimum.
I'll take that. Okay. That's a confidence boost, actually.
Purple decks have the advantage of if they reward you for really skilled play. So if you know your lines and you play perfectly, you draw the Anubismon, obviously, you'll have a great time.
Wow. I got absolutely blasted for like 5 games straight, and he says at least 6 wins. I was starting to feel like there was something to prove, and that sentiment would serve as fuel for my need to practice my matchups even more diligently. Now, I needed to decide what matchups would be most important to practice outside of Numemon and Leviamon. To find out, we needed to look no further than the CoreTCG Regionals held on March 16th, where to my dismay, Red Hybrid actually topped. The problem with this is that Red Hybrid is a deck that already has a reputation of poking holes in Leviamon decks, which could be considered the better version of my own deck. They aim to lay down some heavy aggression and kill you before you hit big combos. They also have the benefit of not needing to worry about their stack dying, because they could always digivolve on top of a tamer to keep pumping out aggro. In addition to Red Hybrid topping, the second place deck was a Millith Loop deck, third place was Wargrammon, and fourth was a Numemon deck, followed by Levia at 5th through 7th. Suddenly, the deck I was most worried about facing wasn't even in top 3, and I would need to be able to play comfortably against at least 5 decks with widely different playstyles. For Numemon, I decided that the best thing to do would be to build a stack safely in raising, only bringing it out if I had already hit Minerva, or if I could promote and go Minerva in the same turn. Ideally, I can throw down some search cards while evoing, and drop a Crimson Blaze when the board looks juicy. In this situation, my best bet is to go Skullgreymon and raising instead of Minerveramon. While the inheritable is better on Mera, keeping my colors available for a Crimson Blaze is really important here. Then it's a matter of getting a cheeky Pandemonium Flame, or sacking my Minerva some other way to hopefully finish breaking board and start doing some damage. If I can't sack Minerva, I should still be able to get some value from Nume players hard playing their champions, or from Monze X making another body. Hopefully this should force the Nume player to either deal with Minerva before they play bodies, giving me Merva, or leave me with some board to rebuild with after Minerva is removed. Wargrammon is a little bit trickier, but definitely manageable. The goal here is actually the really basic Minervamon game plan. Get to Minerva as fast as possible, then find a way to sack it for Merva. The blocker bodies prevent the OTK, and we're absolutely going to look at hammering away at those protection sources with our Saber Dramons. The unfortunate thing is, if the Wargrave player gets a good stack and sees all their pieces, there's not much we can do to stop a straight up OTK if we aren't set up. It's most likely going to be luck of the draw, but that's cards. Leviamon is a situation that I theory crafted pretty heavily before I even crafted this deck. The obvious problem here is Biting Crush, which will give a Leviamon player free removal if I play a card by an effect. Our strategy against this has 2 linchpins. The first is our Minervamon. Unlike most purple combo decks, for the most part, Minervamon doesn't care if the stack gets deleted because we're looking to combo off of our dying. So we're looking to make it to Minerva, and then chip away at the opponent's security. When Minervamon does inevitably die, we use our second linchpin, the Black Gatomon. This will let us bottom deck whatever relevant pieces are in the Leviamon player's trash, most likely a Merva, Levia, or 7th Lightning. Our biggest hiccup is that Black Gato can also serve as a Leviamon player's strongest tool, potentially shutting down our own Merva combos and putting us in a tight spot. I think this matchup could get really interesting. Millith is a complete wildcard, and definitely not a deck I expected to see do this well. The difficult thing about Millith is that, well, it's Mill. There's no way to predict what cards will hit trash and what you'll have to work with. The optimistic take here is that I want things in trash to set up, and Millith might just help me get there. The best I can really do is recognize that their combo relies on the ability to Jax raid multiple times and surprise deck out the opponent. With this in mind, I need to keep an eye on the trash in order to stop myself from getting decked out, and then throw down my Gazimon to stop their combo at a critical moment. I can also be mindful of my Black Automons and look to bottom deck a potential Rival's Barrage target to stop the Millith player from going off. At the end of the day, my strategy is to hit the go button as fast as I can before they mill me out. Red Hybrid is maybe the most straightforward of my matchups, which is surprising. They're going to be aggressive and get lots of checks in with lots of small bodies, using Ukomon to shovel eggs and Tamers to close out the game in the end. Their strongest form of defense, in my opinion, comes from the Emperor Greymon, which can delete a big stack if they needed to. Fortunately for me, I like when Minervamon gets deleted, and hopefully that'll be enough to throw them for a loop and let me combo off before they close the game out with small swings. I think Skullgreymon may also come in really clutch here, as hybrid players tend to throw out lots of cards that fall under the 5k DP threshold, and I can delete 2 of them at the same time. The Nationals decklist did show that red hybrid players are running Gravity Crush now, so I think it's going to be key to set myself up to survive a Gravity Crush turn and then ideally be able to win the game off of a huge memory swing.
That brings us to today.
I did my theory crafting, I did my coaching, I did my practice, and now I'm about to play in not only my first regionals, but my first competitive card game event ever. I hope you guys can drop by the stream and show me some love.
No matter how it goes, it's been tons of fun preparing for this event, and I'll be sure to update you on how it went next week. That's all I have for this video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.